Thanks for joining us. I'm just, at the moment, fighting a medieval battle. There's one gone. Come on, James, help me out here. We're surrounded. There's another one gone. How are you doing over there, James? Alright. Watch out. There's a bloke coming. Good defence.
Today, we're investigating
all about medieval weapons. Dad and me love a whole lot of history. We could be the greatest team that the world has ever seen. Dad and me love a whole lot of history. Hello everyone,
and welcome to
Dad and me love history.
Today we're looking at the most dangerous weapons from the Middle Ages, from about 1000 AD to about 1500 AD.
So medieval times began about 1000 years ago and ended about 500 years ago.
And the weapons we're looking at were used mainly by knights and soldiers, mostly in Europe but also in parts of Asia and Africa. So what sort of weapons were used to attack people? These clubs and maces. So these are blunt usually and not razor sharp.
So what's it like to knock out someone?
Yeah, I mean you can still kill them just by knocking them out rather than necessarily stabbing them. That one looks like it could do some stabbing though. Clank on. Oh yeah, this one. So this is called a flail. So it's like a club, and then a chain is attached to the end of the club, and on the end of the chain is a metal ball.
Like an urchin?
Urchin?
Yeah, because urchin has spikes.
Oh yeah, okay, like a sea urchin, yeah. Metal ball with long, sharp spikes on it, yeah. Well done.
That looks like a mining tool.
Yeah, we're looking at a war hammer now. It does look like a mining tool. It looks like a massive hammer. So these weapons are called pole arms, which basically mean arms as in weapon and pole as in, well, you know, long stick. So these are different types of metal weapons that would go on the end of a long stick.
Like a spear?
Yeah, that's right. It includes spears, lances, and this one here, the poleaxe, which we've used on our photo for this episode on the webpage dadandmelovehistory.com. So it's like a kind of fancy type of spear, but as well as stabbing with a point,
it's an axe as well.
Yeah, it's like an axe, like you say. Oh yeah, and then we've got these what are called ranged weapons. So these are things you either throw or fire. So by the end of medieval times, we start talking about the first types of cannons, but we're not going to get it into cannons today. But you've got axes, which are smaller and designed to be thrown, double-bladed ones as well. Javelin, you know, you have the javelin in the Olympic Games.
Like a spear.
Exactly. Throwing a spear. Do you know what this is a picture of?
A bow and arrow.
Yeah, bow and arrow. It was specifically a long bow because it's as tall as a person, and of course because it's so big, it means you could fire it further than a smaller bow and arrow. And then, do you know what this is? Yeah,
crossbow.
Yeah, so a crossbow is like a more of a mechanical kind of machine that could fire an arrow very hard, very far, and accurately.
Don't you put like an arrow thing in, and then you pull like this bit of string to the back of the gun?
Yeah.
And then is there a trigger, or how do you?
Yeah, there were different designs, but yeah, they all had some sort of trigger to release
the arrow.
Yeah, to release the arrow, and they were very kind of effective weapons, but they took a long time to load compared to a bow and arrow or longbow. So you wouldn't want to use them if your enemy was getting pretty close to you, because it would take you too long to reload. So the weapons we've just looked at so far were all weapons that people held in their hands. I suppose that's why they're called arms, right? Weapons held in their arms. But the one we're going to look at now and in more detail was not a weapon used by one person to attack one other person. So we found a huge super weapon, and we went to investigate it, and it was designed not to knock down people, but buildings. What type of buildings?
Castles?
Yeah. And the weapon we're talking about is called a trebuchet. So these giant, you could say like a giant catapult, but it's a bit more complicated than that. So we went to meet a very special group of people who reenact, that's like they act out medieval battles, but they're not always acting because they don't decide who the winner's going to be. And these guys make medieval weapons and armour, and we were lucky that when we went there, they were putting together an actual trebuchet catapult machine of their own.
So what are we looking at, James?
A trebuchet that's about to get built.
Yeah, it looks like most of it's built. Well, maybe not. There's a lot of pieces here, about half built maybe, you think?
Yeah.
So we're here with a company called Kotaro, Company of the Dagger. And they do medieval reenactments. And they're putting together a medieval style trebuchet right in front of us.
So this machine here is a counterweight trebuchet. That's the actual arm that does the throwing. So that counterweight is on the other side of that arm. And the arm gets attached up there. So when the counterweight drops, that's what provides the momentum for the sling to go out. Oh, you had it in there?
Yeah, it was in. Do you remember we saw a giant one of these fired?
Yeah.
Do you remember where that was?
What?
That's right, yeah. We stayed over at Warwick Castle in England. We stayed over at Warwick Castle in England for a night. And we saw them fire a massive trebuchet there. We had to be a safe distance away.
We've got one about half the size of that one.
Have you? Cool. That's pretty big.
It's
Wait.
up at the Abbey.
Up at the Abbey, okay, so it stays there all the time. So there's an Abbey festival once a year near Brisbane. And is there jousting and sword fighting?
There is. We don't do any jousting, but we do a bit of sword fighting.
So we interviewed, for one of our episodes, we interviewed some semi-professional jousters in England at Arundel Castle, and they said how they go all around the world, including to Australia.
They have them jousting here, and they're from New Zealand, they're from England, they're from all over the place.
And they get performance-related pay, we were told. It's a proper sport. The better they do, the more they get paid. And so I used to think it was staged, that it will be decided in advance who was going to win or lose, like with the sword fighting as well. But it's not, right?
No, it's not. No, not staged.
So,
Not even choreographed.
so how do you avoid getting injured in the sword fighting, for example?
Sometimes you do get injured. That's why the swords are blunt, and you're only allowed to do strikes in a certain manner, and you're not supposed to do them at full strength.
Right.
So, and the idea is to just pull the blow right at the end, but sometimes in the heat of things that doesn't happen, and so you go, ooh, that hurt. Is it the right one on the right one?
There's a non-medieval phone ringing in the background. Can James ask a question here?
How far would the trebuchet fire? This
One
one?
we don't know yet. We haven't. It's not. This is the first time we've built it. 320 meters.
So they're guessing 320 meters.
Joketime!
What cheese could a knight use to hide his horse?
I don't know, James. What cheese could a knight use to hide his horse?
Mascarpone.
Mask a pony.
So this trebuchet's been put together right in front of I guess you could call it a shed, and you'll be listening in different parts of the world. So this, I'd call it an armaments factory. Looking at the medieval weaponry up on the wall, what can you see there that you can name, James?
Axes.
Yeah,
Swords.
yeah.
Spear.
Yeah.
If you look above you, there's all our spears up there.
Oh, wow. And so this shed would be bigger than the flat I used to live in Hong Kong. And this is just an outbuilding in a suburban Queensland home. I don't know how much I'm impressed and how much I'm scared when you look at the weaponry around here.
It's a armoury, all right.
So what have you got there, James?
A sword.
And how does it feel?
Heavy.
So, Dave from Cotro, can you tell us about these swords?
They survive combat, as you can see on these ones. You can see the chunks taken out of the blade, but you can also see that the blades are rounded for safety. But a good blow with one of these will still break a bone or cause some serious damage, which is why we still wear the armour.
And what makes someone in 21st century Australia want to be a medieval knight?
I suppose there's a couple of things. A lot of our original members and even current members have backgrounds in martial arts, backgrounds in gaming, such as Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of thing. And this was like a progression, I guess, like a next step to actually get involved and do the fighting yourself.
Cool. And we saw you from the car at Lindisfarne School last year. Were you there? Did you see these guys? You did. Who did you? What did you see? Who was what in terms of the way they were dressed? What did you see?
I think I saw like an English cross on, like, yeah, well, not t-shirt, but
Like a kind of
bib, really.
yeah, but there's probably a better word for it than that. They're sort of the vest shape.
Oh, the Serco.
Serco, there we go. And I think I remember that guy wearing chainmail underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a square, or like a can helmet, it looked like. It was like in the shape of a can.
Joketime!
What was the nickname for the knight who ruled the fort?
I don't know. What was the nickname for the knight who ruled the fort?
Fort-nite.
This one you commonly see being worn by your Viking warriors. Over the years, this developed into this here, which is a fully formed great helmet. This is the can type helmet you were talking about. Okay, but this gradually developed probably over 3 centuries.
Right.
So it started off as something like this. It then developed, you can see that helmet up there on the left with just a faceplate.
Yeah.
So they realised this offered protection to the nose, but not to the rest of the face.
So the first helmets didn't protect the face, other than a bridge that came out over the nose, and then as time went on, they had full helmets that would protect every part of the head.
Yeah, that's right.
The Slightest Chance is my latest World War II thriller love story based around real history. After the Japanese won the Battle of Hong Kong, a young English woman named Gwen, who was a real person, was the only female to escape from a Japanese camp, and she did so on foot, and then faced an 800-mile journey across occupied China. By the end of this novel, you will have learned all about her extraordinary adventure and how Gwen was secretly carrying information which the very top of the British government would use in the fight against Imperial Japan. Also from real history, included in the novel is the mass breakout led by a one-legged Chinese admiral, and then there's the Japanese guard, Kiyoshi Watanabe, whose Christian faith pushed him to risk his life helping Japan's enemies. Find out more at poorletters.com. The Slightest Chance, when your enemy is your best friend.
Dad's new novel is now available to order online at all the usual places. For details, go to paulletters.com or click on the link from dadandmelovehistory.com.
Joketime! This is a history meets maths joke. Which one of King Arthur's knights was fat and round?
I don't know.
Circumference! He got his name from too much pie. James isn't impressed. Hey listener, do you know what the word freelancer means? Today, it means somebody like a writer or photographer who will work for one newspaper or one company on one day and a different newspaper or company on another day. So lots of different employers pay the same person to do work.
Fun fact, the word freelancer comes from the medieval knight, so they were free to fight for whoever paid them the most. They might use their lance, which is like a spear, to do the fighting, so we get the word freelancer. We love history, baby. We love history.
Okay, well, I'm just moseying along here down the pathway and I see a knight approaching me with an impressive shield there and a helmet which is at the moment covering his face entirely, which normally means he's preparing to fight. I'm getting a little bit worried here. Good day, sir.
G'day.
So, what's happening here?
I'm being friendly because my visor's up.
Oh, so that's why you've moved your visor up. If you show me your face, you're showing that you're being friendly and you mean no harm. Is that it?
Yeah.
Hey, after our closing theme tune later, instead of outtakes, we've got a little interview with a man who fought in the Vietnam War, who's also the Trebuchet chief builder and the maker of suits of armour and swords and other medieval weapons. But first, here are some questions to see if you were listening.
When was the medieval period?
Yeah, so what years roughly was the medieval period, also known as the Middle Ages? Number 2, what does freelancer mean today?
Number 3, what's a lance?
Number 4, who were the first people in history known as freelancers?
Number 5, you would use a trebuchet to attack what?
And finally, number 6, which weapon could you load and fire more quickly? A crossbow or a longbow? Thanks for that, Messi. The noisiest of our two cats. So James, what do you think was the most dangerous medieval weapon?
Probably one of those ones near the start where they had like the spikes on it and like a club with spikes on it.
Oh yeah, so there are different types of mace that we looked at. There's the one called the Morning Star. There's the flail, that is the spiky ball on the end of a chain attached to a club. And then the Morning Stars.
It's like the same except from there's no chain connected to it. It's just connected to the top. I meant that one.
Ah, plancon, the plancon. Yeah, it's like a thick mace, so a club with metal spikes all the way around the sort of side of the end, but also a big spike on the point of the end, like a spear as well. So it's like a spear and a kind of a mace all in one.
What do you think the most dangerous one was?
Well, do you know, I think the trebuchet, because that was the key to getting into a castle. And so that means all the hundreds of people, maybe thousands, who are inside that castle would then be in a dangerous position if the trebuchet knocks down the walls and the enemy gets in. So, yeah, I know what you mean. For hand-to-hand combat, I think you've made a good choice. I'm going to choose the trebuchet.
Well, that's about it from Dad and me.
Have you told your friends about this podcast yet? Tell them about this episode. Oh, and also episode 11, Who Wants to Be a Knight? That's where we interviewed real-life jousters at a jousting tournament in England.
And please review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.
And you can find us on
Facebook
Instagram.
and Twitter.
Bye for now from
Dad and me love history.
Okay, Mama, you're allowed to start teaching your classes now.
Dad and me love a whole lot of history. We could be the greatest team that the world has ever seen. Dad and me love a whole lot of history.
So we learned that you were in the Air Force and in the Vietnam War, and now you're in a medieval fighting company.
Yep.
Any of the skills that you're using now? You're the main architect, engineer of this trebuchet, and you make armor. Did you learn these skills in the Air Force, or?
No, I've been doing this since I was a kid.
Oh wow!
Working, building models, and making cannons. I went and did fitter and turners courses, welding courses. You learn none of that in the Air Force as a common soldier.
Oh, okay.
So this was all part-time stuff.
Right.
And then my son joined a medieval reenactment group and brought home a suit of armour that was really crap and asked me to fix it. So I worked on it for about 3 or 4 days and fixed it all up so I could fit him, and I enjoyed doing that. There was something entirely different in my life, and so I went and did blacksmith courses, advanced blacksmith courses, and then I bumped into this ugly crew and joined on as their blacksmith. So, but everything that I've built and everything that I've made, I've only done under this company's banner. I never did any of this before, and I'm still with them. So we've been doing it now for 14 years.
Brilliant.
So I look at a photograph and people say, "Oh, that looks nice," and put a person next to it to give me a scale. We draw our own plans from realistic pictures and that from the 12th century, and then we build what we've got. And it's at the same time, it's an education for all of our members as well. So history is getting taught as we're having fun. So it's a great thing.
That's exactly what we like on Dad and Me Love History, isn't it, James?
Yeah. Doody doo doody 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 doo doody 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 doo doody doody.